Welcome to another episode of Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo, and I'm joined, as always, by Chris, the technician Aceto, on this February 20th, 2017 afternoon. Chris, we are rapidly approaching the Arnold Classic. Less than 2 weeks to go now till we get. I can't even believe it. It actually crept up on us really quickly. Maybe because I don't know. Maybe because I'm in Florida now, it doesn't feel like the winter, so I really wasn't expecting it, but. Quest Nutrition will be the official sponsor of all the coverage of the Arnold Classic weekend on RxMuscle.com, and we have a lot of that planned, from the Hall of Fame, which we'll talk about, Bob Goldman's International Hall of Fame ceremony that we always film, to the interviews we do there, to the contest coverage, to the photos, to the preview, to the wrap-ups, winter interviews, and all the exciting play-by-play that goes on at that weekend. Plus, of course, the expo, which is amazing. I can't wait to hit that Quest Nutrition booth. Is going to be amazing with all the keto meals they got there this year. So I am stoked to be going out to Columbus, Ohio. I'm actually not stoked to be going into the weather at Columbus, Ohio. But then again, they've made that Arnold Classic, Chris, so good now that you don't even have to step outside. Everything's in one big building.
That's right. You got me the last minute, or Amanda, thank you, Amanda, got me the hotel that's connected to the venue, so I don't have to go out in the freezing weather.
Never have to leave. It's amazing. And if you have to go to the athlete hotel, you just walk across the little, they got like a little insulated crosswalk. Yeah, so it's they built it's funny because Columbus, Ohio has been rebuilt since, I mean, you've been going there also a long time. I remember when I went there the first time in 1994. It was just like a regular town. Now they have built this town around the Arnold Classic. It's amazing. All the hotels are connected to each other by walkways, essentially, at least the ones in downtown Columbus. Everything is, the convention center wasn't there. It's built. Everything is one spot. I mean, we used to have to go to the Veterans Memorial, which was like a mile away, and then everyone couldn't get cabs, and it was freezing, and people would be walking back. And now, man, that place has developed and evolved, thanks to Jim Lorimer and Arnold Schwarzenegger, into a megatropolis, I call it. I mean, it's really a mega conference town now. A lot of people go in there, and it was all because of the Arnold. The Arnold started it all.
Well, if you remember, if you go way back, late when they first started it, I think it was 89. 89, 90, 91. 89. It was really like there was no place to eat downtown.
No, there was no restaurants. There was nothing. The whole place. I mean,
and there was.
Do you remember where people went?
I can't remember. No.
What was the one place that everyone would go after the show? Let me see if you can figure this out.
I only know the Night of the Champions place next door, but.
The Spaghetti Factory, right? Didn't they have that?
Spaghetti Factory, yeah.
I don't even know if it's still there, to be honest with you, but that's where everyone went.
The only two hotels was the one where the athletes used to stay.
The Doubletree, right?
Doubletree, and then that one, the one that's like has built on sort of stilts.
Well, then there was the Hyatt Regency. That was the
Hyatt Regency, I guess. Yeah,
which is where we're staying actually this year. Luckily, it used to be you call up, you get a hotel room. You can't even book a hotel room downtown anymore. They block all those rooms because the Arnold people have to put all the athletes and all the vendors and so. I mean, luckily we're kind of fathered in. We've been working with them so long now that they always take care of us as far as getting us a room. The rooms are expensive. Don't get me wrong. You're better off not staying close to the venue because it's really expensive. Or not staying exactly right there. Maybe a couple blocks away is better because some of the hotels are expensive and it adds up, But you can't pay for the convenience is so great that it's, especially for people like us who are running from one thing to the next.
So I'm staying at the same place as you guys, right?
Yeah, we're in the same hotel.
Okay, so which hotel is that? The one where the athletes stay, or no?
We're in the Hyatt Regency, which is the one where the actual show is. Right next door is the other hotel, which is is it that Fairmont? No, what the hell is the name of that hotel next door? Hilton. Is it the Hilton?
I don't have to leave. I don't have to leave though, right, into cold weather.
No, you can walk through the walkway. That's what I'm saying. That's what we did last. No, I must have walked back and forth through that walkway 600 times. I kept forgetting things last year, and
I'm sure with one knee.
Yeah, with one. I don't. Yeah. Was I hobbling around last year?
No.
I think it was. before I got my surgery. No, I don't remember.
One shoulder then.
No, last year, you're right, I did get my surgery, but I got it after the Arnold last year. But I still probably wasn't ambulating too well, I'm sure. Next year I'll have one shoulder. This year I'm looking for the shoulder replacement. You're right. Every year it's like another thing. I feel like my dad. They could rebuild me. They could make me better than I was before. Better, stronger, faster. For those of you who don't remember the TV show The $6 Million Man from the 70s, that's what I was quoting. So we got a lot to talk about, Chris. Obviously, now that the Arnold Classic is coming up, there's always drama leading up to the Arnold Classic. And this past week was my birthday, Friday.
Happy birthday.
I'm 49. I'm 1 year away from you. You turned 50 this year. 49. 49 doesn't seem so bad. It's like, all right. But you know what? Now the stress is on because now I got a whole year to go before I'm 50. How did it feel when you turned 50? Any different?
You break it down into two more decades. That's how I. Right,
but do you feel like weird telling people you're 50 now? Like when how old are you, Chris? 50. 50 sounds old,
Yeah, no. I tell people, and it there's kind of like a disconnect in my mind. I said, "Wow, 50," because usually I'm telling someone I'm telling like a cousin the other day. Said, "How old are you?" And I said, maybe he's in his late 20s. I'm like, 50. And he's like, "Oh, yeah." In other words, of course you are. Maybe I thought you were 55.
You look way younger than 50. That's for sure. You definitely don't look 50 because you have a full head of hair, and your face doesn't have a single line on it. So, luckily, I don't really have any. I think I looked older when I was competing than when I do now. So, because I'm thinner now, and when you're thinner, usually you look younger. But I guess I'll deal with 50 next year. I'm not going to deal with it right now. Johnny's birthday.
We'll put it this way. I do this all the time. I say, well, in 10 years, which goes by in 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I'll be 60.
That's even scarier.
And then I start thinking of if sometimes I kid with myself and I think of your father. I'm on it. I'm serious. And then I think of my father because at 50, my father started getting dementia. And whenever I can't remember something.
Me too.
I'm
the same way.
Worried.
You're right. I'm the same way. Every
because
time
I used to have a fairly good memory. I don't, and now it's I just can't remember things.
Yeah.
I mean, people can ask me do you remember so and so, and I'll be like, no. Do you remember? Nah, I don't remember him either, or her either. Or, do you remember this place vaguely?
Isn't it good when someone else has the same problems that you do? You kind of, it makes it seem like it's not so bad, but we could both be going demented. That's the scary part.
Yeah. Well, so long as what happens if you're going more demented or have more dementia than me, it makes me feel better because I think, oh, mine's not as bad.
Right.
I said, I talked to Amanda. Dave doesn't even know. He thinks he's still in New York.
Yeah. Well, the good thing is that I think you and I have what's called midlife. Too much going on. That's what we got. We still have our memory. We just have too many facts coming in at one time. It's like when you have a hard drive that's a little full, and you got to keep spitting things. You got to keep deleting things to make sure that you can get the new information in there. You and I are not deleting enough. That's the problem.
You know what I do, Dave? We delete enough. I was on the phone with American Airlines the other day, and you call the 800 number. I do this with everyone, and they say for press 1, press 2. I just hit 0000 a million times. I can't listen to the... No,
but they change it now. You can't hit 0. Doesn't do anything anymore. I do that also, and it disconnects you now. You have to hit 8 or 7. You have to listen to the whole freaking menu. And who has time for that? I want an override. I can just hit a key and go right to where I want to go to.
Yeah.
But so Johnny's birthday is Sunday. Was Sunday, so he turned, I think, 34 or something like that. He's a young.
How young? 34.
Yeah, he's a young.
Congratulations, Johnny. 34. Wow.
His wife's only 30, so they're
oh
young.
My goodness.
Still. We got some youth in our staff. Yeah, that's good. And we went it's his birthday's today because we record the day before the show, and we're going to go to taking him to the Asian buffet for some.
Oh, you found a new place.
Yeah, there's a new place here.
No more Golden Corral.
Well, I went to Golden Corral yesterday. So Saturday's Golden Corral. Sunday is Asian buffet for his birthday. And he took me out to Tropical.
I like Polo.
That's a Puerto Rican place. He took me there for my birthday on Friday, and I'm taking him to the Asian buffet, which is sushi, Japanese food, Chinese. They have everything there pretty much. So we'll doing a lot of, look, when you live in Florida, you do the buffets. That's the shtick.
Yeah, when I went with you to the buffet, the customers actually knew you.
Yeah, that's pretty scary.
They're trying to give you like a nod, like old men, like in the 80s. Like,
hey, what's up? Yeah,
see you there every day.
You have to pick. I didn't realize this, when you have kids, you have to really pick places where it's insane in there already. Because if it's too quiet and nice, then it's too disruptive. Your kids are too disruptive to everyone.
Come on, your whole life becomes like vacations become for the kids. What can they do with it? Eating at restaurants. I was looking at restaurants the other day, and we were going up and down the street, and I'm like, that one's too formal. That one's too loud to upset the 3-year-old. That one's too quiet. If he's upset, all the other customers will get upset. You need like the noise level like halfway in the middle. This one's ridiculously expensive.
The problem is that my dad when we grew up, always hated these what he called cafeteria style restaurants where like everyone's just sitting around and there's too much noise. He didn't like that, so he couldn't go there. So we just never went out to eat. That was his excuse. I don't want to eat in these cafeteria places. So the only place that we ever went out to eat was when my grandparents would treat us like the Chinese food. They'd take the whole family out. We'd go to these fancy places, and we'd have to like, if I went crazy, that was it. You smacked. So. But my dad would not go to these like Golden Corral places. Would never step foot in one of those places. It's funny because it's ironic because nowadays all he eats is junk food now. When we were younger, he wouldn't. I never saw my dad eat a cookie.
Oh my goodness, Dave! I just can't even believe the. I can't believe you said that. My father is a junk food junkie, right? Well, he's got dementia. Maybe he forgot that he used to eat good. But I remember up until maybe I was in my early 20s, I'd never seen him eat anything with sugar whatsoever.
Isn't that weird? How you change?
He would always eat like low carbs. Actually, he would eat like. I never saw him eat many carbs.
Wow, that's funny. Did he do that purposely, or just the way he liked to eat?
I think he, I think he did it purposely.
So he knew like that it made him look better.
Yeah, he knew instinctively that high carbs would destroy his condition.
That's where the old Aceto instincts come from. So you got something good from you, Dad. People say, what's Chris's methodology when he works with people? How many grams of this does he give per pound? I said, he doesn't have any formulas. He just knows. I said, he just knows.
Someone asked me today, they emailed me, and they're probably listening to the show. They said, he's doing a show. He looks really, really good. And he said, do I count, or do you count the protein that's in the protein food or that's in the other foods too? Meaning like the protein and pasta. And I said, first I deleted it, and then he sent it again, and then I deleted it again, and then he asked me, please answer this question. And I said, I don't even know how much protein you're on actually. I mean, I never added it up.
Right.
Like 10 ounces of chicken.
Well, you do it per meal. You do it per meal. You don't do it the whole day. These guys want to know calorie count. They want to know They want to know so much information. I know.
I think this. If you're eating 8 ounces of protein, I don't know how much protein that is, but I know what 8 ounces is.
It's like 50 grams.
And just let's say it's on 5 meals or 6 straight meals, and I think you need more protein. Then I'd just increase the ounce. You know what I mean? I don't have to get.
Don't you hate when you get these guys overseas? You got to convert it to grams for them. I'm sure you don't do that, but they're like, "How many grams is that?" I'm like, "I don't know. I got to go to the Google calculator and figure it out."
Yeah, go figure it out. I don't know. Go figure it out. You need 50 grams of carbohydrates from oatmeal. Go figure out what that weighs on a Bunsen burner scale.
I tell people that too. I say, look, because I say I want you to get 40 grams of carbs from white rice. They're like, well, how much rice is that? I'm like, well, it depends what rice box you're using. If you're using minute rice, or if you're using long grain rice, or if you're using basmati rice, it's always different. You got to read the box. You read the box, given the serving size, how many grams of carbs, and just follow the serving size directions. You can't give a blanket amount that's always going to fit every box. It's always different, whereas protein is protein pretty much. If you eat 8 ounces of meat, it's 8 ounces of meat, more or less. So, and people always ask me, Is it cooked or uncooked? I say cooked because the cooked value is what you're putting into your body. If you're weighing your food uncooked and then you're cooking off 2 ounces of it, then you're not getting 8 ounces.
Well, that's a good point.
Especially with red meat, you lose a lot of weight when you cook it because a lot of it has fat in it.
Yeah.
So speaking of the Arnold Classic, Josh Lenardowitz, who was a late entry into the Arnold Classic, is now out. I talked to Matt Loers. We were going over press passes and everything like we do every year, and he's like, "Oh, but did you hear Josh is out?" I'm like, "Josh?" I said, "Wasn't Josh like a late entry?" He's like, "Yeah." I said, "How does a late entry drop out?" He's like, "Personal problems." So yeah, I saw Sid talks to Josh a lot. And
what's his personal problems? People love personal problems more than he had knee injury.
Yeah.
Oh, people don't care. He has a big personal problem. What is it? Can you imagine announcing it? Whatever it was, people would be like, "Whoa!"
People,
right? I mean,
you're right.
It's like so and so busted for anabolic steroids. Like the forum explodes.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
When they announced that, Don Long got arrested. It was all over the news. Him and his wife and Armando Aman and a whole bunch of other bodybuilders got arrested down in Florida about a week ago, and people were like talking about it like it was like someone just got elected president of the United States. I'm like, guys, this is not good news. I said, this is we don't know what happened. All we know is that they're going to have some hefty legal bills, and they have a newborn baby. I said, so let's just chill out on Don Long here a minute, Yeah. So it's
so Josh is out of it.
So Josh is out. You said he has some kind of family issues, but you know what? He also hinted that he was, he got in at the last minute and he wasn't sure he was going to be in the best shape. So I have a feeling he just couldn't get in shape in time and he pulled out. That's what I think. It's good to blame family issues when, you're really not going to be in the best shape of your life. Very few people in the best shape of their life pull out because of family issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Good point.
Usually you find a way around it. Guy Sistanino went to his brother's wedding, the day before the show. That's just the way it happened. But if Guy wasn't in shape, he might have said, "Hey, I can't do the show because my brother, it's got this wedding the day before."
Speaking of, we'll come back to the Arnold, but I wanted to comment on the Guy interview that you did on the TV station. Here's where you can put in the plug for the TV station. But it was fantastic. There was a lot of really good parts. I know you've known Guy for a long period of time, so you know how crazy he is. But really, and I know all his, shtick lines. They're not lines. They're just the way he is. But the new great quote, and what really left me, stuck with me from the interview is when he said the difference between me and, quote, these other guys, and, I don't think that meant guys like in the 212, it just means people who bodybuild in general, is that I compete because I love to train, period. Everyone else, or not everyone else, but other guys want to be bodybuilders.
Yeah, they compete because they want to be bodybuilders, right? He just competes because he's training anyway.
Yeah, he just loves to. So, you can want to be a bodybuilder and love to train too, but there's a big, it's a huge difference, even though it's a small difference in that he loves to train, so therefore he will, decide to compete.
Which means he'll probably train his whole life. He'll never stop, even after he's done competing. Some of these guys are like, "Oh, I can't wait." It's funny. Flex Wheeler was always saying, "When I'm done bodybuilding, I'm never working out again." Well, yeah, that happened. Then all of a sudden he got a kidney problem, and it was taken away from him. And nowadays, he trains because he realized, I did like to train. Maybe I didn't like training back then because it was too much pressure on me to have to do well. I know he didn't really he hated the pressure of competing, even though he was so good at it, which is an irony in and of itself. You think if you're really that good, you would love it, but he didn't. He didn't like being on stage, and that was the worst part for him.
Yeah,
which is kind of ironic when seeing how gifted he was. But yeah, Guy is great because Guy tells it like it is. He's not afraid to say if he doesn't think he was judged properly, he voices it. He was talking about the Phoenix Europa show where 2 years in a row Charles Dixon beat him, and the last time he was actually in the center call out the whole entire show. And Charles and his trainer actually came up to him and congratulated him on winning after the prejudging, and then he came in second behind him after all was said and done. So he obviously was upset about that. He talked about his life and is getting divorced and all the stress in his life. And he's, we talked about Oxygen Gym, and I asked him if he thought there was anything magical out there. And he's like, these guys, they're just too freaking lazy. They need to be sequestered out there. I don't need that. And it was interesting that he said that, because I felt the same way when we mentioned this earlier before the show started. When I trained, I lived the life of a monk. I never went out. I never drank. I never did any drugs. I was focused on bodybuilding. That's it. And there, guys like Ronnie Coleman, Dorian Yates, throughout the history of bodybuilding, the guys that got the best results, were always the guys that had a self-imposed, I guess you could say,
monkship.
Yeah. Self-imposed, I guess you could say, sequestering. So some of these guys are just very easily distracted, and those are the guys I think that do well out at Oxygen Gym, because it's like they're going to a training camp.
Yeah, well, that was the quote from Jay. I told you. I think I said it last week, or maybe I never did on the show. He texted me and said,
what did you say?
These guys don't understand. The quote is this. These guys don't understand that you can have no social life, period, none, period. That's the exact text. These guys don't understand that you can have no social life, period, none, period. And that's the life, Jay lived. I mean, he will tell you his social life, was essentially, eating out somewhere that he enjoyed.
Well, you ever noticed, and this is applicable to Dorian and to Jay, a lot of guys have wives, some have kids, very tight family lives while they're competing, and then they retire, and all of a sudden they get divorced. Happened to Jay, happened to Dorian, happened to me when I was originally married. Because I think the bodybuilders that are living that sequestered, life with no social life, they need that family, I guess you could say, structure around them, so that they don't have to think about going out and partying, or going out and meeting chicks, or going out and hanging out with friends. It's like they create their own little fantasy world around them that's very protective, and it enables them to just focus on one thing, which is their bodybuilding. And a lot of times when people stop competing after that, they start realizing, maybe this was kind of an artificially constructed type of thing. Even though I respect and love the people that were around me at the time, that's not who I really am. Now I can explore who I really am. And I think that a lot of bodybuilders make that evolutionary change after. Ronnie dated Vicky Gates for many years when he competed, and then when he stopped, now he's with another woman. So I think it really just changes. It's like a disconnect that goes on. You have to have that if you want to be a great bodybuilder. Unfortunately, you're living in fantasy world for those years that you're doing that.
You have to have the stability. You mean?
They need the stability. And sometimes the stability is built on a relationship that maybe won't be functional once they don't need the stability anymore. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
So it's just part of the game. But a lot of these,
Warren Buffett, early on in his career, he was married, and it just made me think of Warren Buffett. He's
your hero.
Yeah, well, because he's simple.
Right.
He has, to some degree, he could be considered a hero.
You like a lot of stuff he does, like he drives the old car.
Yeah.
You copy a lot of stuff he does. I know.
He was having an affair.
Oh, he was.
And someone said, "Who are you having an affair with?" His wife thought he was having an affair. He was so into reading balance sheets and stuff on businesses that he was, he said he'd go and hide in the bathroom for hours. This is early on when he was young, and read balance sheets and stuff. And then finally, I don't know, his wife, she didn't kick him out, but she said, you're better off just,
leaving,
enjoying your business stuff. And
Blackman sits in the bathroom reading science journals and looking at guys' glutes. So I mean, is that can be construed as cheating too? I guess.
Let me just say, because it is it's not beating a dead horse, because the horse is not dead yet.
No, he's still rearing.
But news broke this week that the lady who actually mails the checks out. Yeah,
Denise. She was one of the nicest people there. Yeah, too.
I mean, think of that nonsenseness that let's just go back. You need to build a timeline, like multiple different timelines. But this timeline is Dave Palumbo comes on the TV show or the radio show or both and says, this is like 18 months ago, Blackman's not paying people. And, that's when he still has people over there. People pile on, what does Dave Palumbo, he don't know what the hell he's talking about. And then, a little bit more seeps out, this guy's let go, that guy's let go. Fast forward, David Bay, the whistleblower, comes on the show. Fast forward, the lady who sends out the checks that never get there in the first place.
She's gone now.
She quits. And we're supposed to make believe that everything's fine still over there.
Well, it's
and I say that, and people listening can say, "Wow, how fine are they at RxMuscle?" Well, that's the difference. The difference is Dave paid his bills. Dave paid people. Dave paid people sometimes out of his own pocket, or many times out of his own pocket. And Dave told people, you know what, I'm not going to be able to pay you in the future if we and when we actually cut back on these shows. Meanwhile, Blackman's formulating the Constitution of MD. Why cut back? And sending me out a text message and saying that we'll never cut back. He said we're actually growing.
He wanted to pay you. He wanted to triple your salary. The only problem is you never would have gotten a check in the mail. That's the problem.
Yeah. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, people aren't even getting paid.
No.
So, why beat a dead horse? Because it's fun, actually. And the irony is, is that David, had you bounced one check on someone in the past,
right?
We'd
be all over the internet, right? Well,
we'd hear about it from the last, from the last employee. I mean, who's the last employees over there? Maybe Blackman's posting himself. He'd be posting it on MD's forum.
He doesn't know how to post. That's the problem.
You don't know how to log in.
Yeah, he doesn't know how to log in. It's interesting because we were speculating about Dallas McCarver. Like, how the hell is freaking Blackman paying Dallas McCarver if he can't even pay Ron Harris, who's now the editor in chief over there? He can't even pay Charles Glass. He can't pay Dan Ray. So, we had...
he doesn't pay Guy Sistanino.
Yeah, right. You like that question I hit Guy with at the end of the interview?
Yeah.
How much money you owed? I don't know. But he knows how much.
He knows exactly.
He knows to the penny what he's owed.
Tell me exactly how much he's owed.
He did? I knew it. Well, you were on vacation this week out in California. A lot of people don't know that. And you couldn't make the Iron Debate show this week, so we got Aaron Singerman to sit in with John Romano and myself. If you guys haven't watched the episode, it's a doozy. You definitely want to see it. It was like a reunion of sorts. And John asked Aaron, Dallas McCarver's your athlete. Why is he exclusive to MD? And Aaron told us the answer, which was Aaron is still shoveling money over there to Blackman. And part of the deal is that Blackman takes some of the money that Aaron gives him as sponsorship and pays Dallas with it.
Well, that's mind numbing.
So Romano basically said, "Idiot! Why don't you just pay Dallas more money? You could pay him half the money you give Blackman, and don't give him anything because you're not getting any value over there. Like, it's ridiculous. It's a Ponzi scheme.
You might as well drive down the highway and throw money out the window."
That's what John said. John said. John ripped into. I don't know if you got to watch it. You love this thing. Just watch even the last 15 minutes of it. John rips into Aaron so much, and we had Aaron was a great guest on the show. We had the topics we talked about were really good, and if you get, it was about Dallas and about Flex Wheeler getting a job with Generation Iron, and we talked about Kevin Levrone announcing his comeback at the Vancouver, or a second comeback at the Vancouver this year. But so the topics were great, but just at the very end, we had to break Aaron's balls a little bit because he is still supporting Blackman, and you know what it is. It's the Jewish thing, because Blackman, he gives him all that stuff, and he probably invites him to his mother's house down in Florida there, and so Aaron somehow thinks that he's getting value over there when he's not. But the fact that Blackman is leveraging the Dallas McCarver thing, so if I'm Aaron, I would want Dallas talking to everyone. Wouldn't you promoting my new product line? From
sorry. Someone said, you don't know their business model. From a business sense. It makes no sense.
No, Aaron thinks because he's got like 3 people in the Middle East who read Muscular Development magazine that it's worth it. Yeah, we got a big readership in the Middle East. They really value the print
no,
ads.
No, so, how about that?
Romano's like, why don't you just fucking print your own magazine and distribute it in the Middle East? It'll be a lot cheaper.
No, they don't. They don't have sales. There's no fictitious sales in Europe or fictitious sales in South America. If you can't sell Coca-Cola in Miami and in Los Angeles, you're not going to exceed the sales. You're not going to be selling in Belarus or Qatar or Kuwait.
No.
In other words, if you have a business model and it's not working in the United States, don't think it's flying somewhere else and conning people and telling them that it's we do well overseas.
Let me ask you this question: since you weren't on the show, and I really wanted your feedback, have you watched the this Dallas McCarver posing video for Jim Mannion?
I saw it.
What'd you think of Dallas?
Dave, I've been saying from on the radio show in a nice way that people expect Dallas, to be like a Jay Cutler, and they thought Kukla was going to be a Jay Cutler, and they thought whoever they is, who won the Orlando that year? Who's the other? I don't
Compton.
Negative. Compton, and they expected Compton, who's to be the next Jay Cutler. Probably of those 3, Compton would probably be the most likely to be the better of the 3 bodybuilders at this point. But the reason I bring that up and give it context is I saw the video and I just think it's more of the same. In other words, what you see is what you get with Dallas. It's a young bodybuilder who's continually added a lot of muscle in the last 3 years. And that type of muscle, the way it's put together, is always going to look much smaller on stage than and they're not really technically, these guys are not that crazy big. Roden, Dexter, Baiki, people with all the tie-ins, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Cedric. So weight, weight on the scale means something. But it's like a business balance sheet. You know what I mean? You can have a $10 billion income in sales, but you have, $9 billion going out the door. You don't really have. There's not really a lot there. It's better to have a $4 billion income and $1 billion going out the door.
Right.
So I saw the video and I saw the criticism of the stomach, and I just think Dallas has got like a lot of weight on his body and a lot of, quote, a lot of muscle. But structurally, I guess that's the reference to like the Dexter, the Roden, the Baiki, the Cedrics. When standing next to those guys, he's, structurally, that muscle does not, quote, show up all of a sudden on stage. Make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It's interesting because Aaron said on the show as an excuse, he's like, "Oh, we didn't know that the Jam was filming." So they were like in other words, like they weren't prepared for this. It was like they caught them by surprise.
Weren't prepared to suck in the gut.
Yeah, but let me tell you the truth, because J.M. Mannion called me the other day, and J.M. said to me, "I want you to know the real story. The real story is that they wanted to come down there, and Aaron wanted to make a big production, fly everyone in, Chad, him, Dallas, to come see Jim Mannion, who had the flu, by the way, that weekend." And JM said, "Look, the only way," and him and Frank Zeppi, who runs the NPC News website, said, "Look, the only way you're coming in is if we can film Dallas, because we want content. We're not going to waste 4 hours of our day if we can't film this thing for the NPC News." And because they knew Blackman had this exclusive on Dallas.
Yeah.
So Aaron's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. I'll call Blackman." And I guess he got it cleared. So they knew going in there that they were, number one, that they were going to pose. Number two, that the NPC News had exclusivity on filming everything that went on that day. And from when they got there, they knew that they were filming because they filmed from the minute they got there. So they knew this was happening. And to make things worse, Jim, because he was sick with the flu, wasn't there. And they were like begging JM, oh, give your dad a call. Can you see if he can just come down and take a look at, we really wanted to look at Dallas. So they knew that they wanted Jim to look at it. So they actually must have thought that Dallas looked good. That had to be the belief. And Chad was bragging about how good he was. So, JM calls up his dad and says, Dad, can you come down? These guys have been here. Yeah, fine, I'll come down. So Jim comes down, even though he does not feeling that good. And he looks at the guy, and he tells the guy on video, you're not looking that good. You're not sucking in your stomach. This is. And he critiques him, but they cut that part out of the video because they didn't want to put up a terrible video. They weren't looking to disparage Dallas. He got disparaged just by the way he looked there. They didn't want to show Jim putting him down because Jim is brutally honest. He's like Weinberg.
Yeah,
he's not going to tell him he looks good if he doesn't look good. So they knew he was being filmed. They just thought he looked good. Chad jumped on the bandwagon with Dallas, and I love Chad, and we mess around with him, but Chad is really trying to take credit for this guy's whole career, and this guy has been a great bodybuilder for a number of years before Chad started working with him in October. So everyone's on this Dallas bandwagon. Oh, he's going to win the Arnold. I don't think he's going to win the Arnold. I think he'll place top 5, but from my point of view,
what's going to happen is Go ahead.
Well, from my point of view, I'm sure he'll be shredded on stage. I have no doubt that Chad will bring him in tight on stage, and I'm sure he'll control his midsection as well as he can. His glutes will be crazy striated. I just think that he has a weak back. You and I have discussed this, and I think, like you said, structurally, if guys like Cedric and Baiki come in shape, there's no way Dallas beats him.
Yeah. Just put him between those two, and I got. Don't count Juan Morel out of that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
And I say that because the first thing I think of is Juan, and everyone has their weaknesses. Juan's got some weaknesses, which he's improved on his legs. But Juan's got a pretty decent, it depends on if
structure.
He's full or not full. His back is pretty impressive.
Yeah.
And, his pecs, his side chest will be Dallas's side chest, and he's got no midsection at all.
No, and he's just as conditioned as any of those guys.
Of course. I mean, Juan is the opposite, meaning he's got no midsection, no distension, he's got a very small waist with very full pecs, which is going to look very impressive on stage.
Yeah. The only thing Dallas has got on Juan is legs, maybe from the front, but not from the back. So I think you're right. I think that Juan will be. I actually in my head predictions, which we'll make next week. The official predictions. I have Juan beating Dallas. To be honest with you, I got news for you. Fouad Abiad could beat Dallas McCarver if Dallas is not 100% on. So he beats a lot of people that he shouldn't because he's a workhorse.
He's kind of like I guess I'll call. He's kind of like a Canadian Dexter.
Well, he's just a workhorse too. He's like a Guy Sisternino.
He's like a Guy Dexter.
He's a Guy Sisternino. Yeah.
He's a guy in the mentality, but he's a Dexter, and Dexter could be overlooked running into a show, like people not expecting him to win it. He's just got a lot of detail and condition, and at a lot of shows. Maybe not all of them, but a lot of shows, and most of the shows, Fouad shows up in great condition, can slip by a lot of people.
Josh Lenardowitz could have beaten Dallas McCarver, but now he's not in the lineup, obviously, so that's we got to remove him. All right, we got to take a commercial break, though. When we come back, Chris, I'm going to talk about some deaths we had in the industry. It's pretty sickening that we have to it's like almost every other show we're talking about someone dying, but stay tuned. I'm going to announce one of them was a close friend, so I want to talk about her a little bit more than just a brief mention. Stay tuned. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
A legendary name in hardcore supplementation. Iron Mag Labs. 100% original, patent pending andro compounds. The most effective hardcore, groundbreaking bodybuilding supplements in the world. Iron Mag Labs. Revolutionizing hardcore supplementation for more than a decade. Visit ironmaglabs.com. ironmaglabs.com.
Hi, I'm Dave Palumbo, And I just had a protein shake made with Quest Nutrition's new salted caramel protein powder. And I can tell you this, it's on a whole new level. It's a total reinvention of the protein shake. The taste is incredible, and its creamy texture and richness make it taste like a real caramel milkshake. It's incredibly low carb, less than 1 gram of sugar, and 22 grams of protein in every serving. No soy, and it's gluten-free. Just add water, ice, a scoop of protein, and shake it up. It's that easy. I actually look forward to drinking this shake. And Quest Nutrition has got a total of 7 different flavors. They come in convenient single-serving packets so you can mix and match. Check out loveyourproteinpowder.com for more information on Quest protein powders and some delicious shake inspirations. Welcome back to Heavy Muscle Radio. I'm Dave Palumbo talking with the technician, Chris Aceto, on this February 20th, 2017 afternoon. And Chris, we have some sad news in the world of bodybuilding. Nicole Bass has passed. She was known as the largest women bodybuilder of all time, 6'2", over 200 pounds, competing on stage. She was on the Olympia stage, and she won the NPC Nationals. And she's been around the industry. Everyone knows her for years. She's probably most well known as for her stint as a whack packer on, not on the RxMuscle show, but as a real whack packer on the Howard Stern show. She was always on there. Howard was always breaking her balls. She did a little stint also at the WWE. She was, Sable's bodyguard, the wrestler Sable. She was in there for a while. She probably had about a year run in the WWE, and then her ex-husband, or her husband Bob, who is no longer with us, also he had a big mouth, and I think he got her in trouble over that. But and then she tried to sue the WWE and for sexual harassment, and the jury threw it out because they're like, who would sexually harass her? You know, it was one of those deals.
I can't believe that Bob. So Bob, did Bob screw it up for her?
Bob screwed it up for her. Yeah, Bob would be backstage at all these WWE events, and he would be running his mouth, and they're like, "Who the hell is this guy? Get him out of here!" You know, and I truly believe that's why they get rid of him. There's no official word on that, but I believe that's why, because she was a popular wrestler. She was very popular, and they were paying her really well too for a while. Because she was huge, you know, they liked those. You know, she definitely fit in perfectly with that WWE persona. I mean, that's, you know, because they never had a woman like that. You know, it was an anomaly. I mean, and she was good. She was a good actor. She as kooky as she is and was, I should say, she was a good actress. She knew how to play her part, and she played it well. You know, the big crazy freak. You know, and. It's a shame, you know. She was a sad person because she had a lot of gifts, and she just, I don't know. I think she had depression. She suffered from depression, which a lot of people do. Unfortunately, depression is a major killer, and she wasn't taking care of herself the last couple of years. She was overweight, and she just wasn't healthy, and she wound up dying of a stroke. That was the official cause of death.
Wow.
She was living. I don't know if she was living or she was dating a girl. I mean, she switched her sexual preferences, and she was dating some really young girl who did all the. She kind of posted what happened because I don't think anyone knew. But all the major news outlets picked up the story. USA Today, and it was on MSNBC, and they all picked up the Nicole Bass death story, probably because she was in the WWE. And it was sad. You know, I had a lot of interactions with Nicole. If you Google Nicole Bass, a lot of the pictures you see online, some of them were taken at my house because I was helping her for one of her shows, and she would come and we'd do progress photos and we'd put them up, and she was a fun person to hang around. She had great stories. She was a good storyteller. She had that very deep voice, you know, which it just was part of her whole persona. You know, it's like Andre the Giant. You know, Andre the Giant, you know, was not a normal person. I'm sure a lot of people picked on him early in his life, but he just became like this persona, you know, and, you know, unfortunately he also died young, you know, probably the result of his overproduction of growth hormone in his body. But he was diabetic, and, you know, he didn't watch his health either. But I think she died too soon. I really do. I think she had a lot to contribute still. I just think that she was a troubled soul, you know. And once Bob died, she just lost focus too.
Yeah. And you never did like a long interview with her, right?
No, I had her on a couple. I had a few, and I did a few interviews with her. I think I got to look them up. I got to try to find them on some of the TV shows. I think I had her on a TV show once, and she was very funny. She was a funny girl. She could have been a comedian. She had very good insight into life, and she was able to laugh at herself. And that's important, you know. If you can't laugh at yourself in life, then you're going to be miserable.
True.
And she was able to laugh at herself, and like I said, I'll miss her. You know, I'll never forget. I went in 1994, 1992 New York Metropolitan Championships. It was my second show ever, Chris. I was, I think, 212 pounds or something like that. I was a heavyweight, and I show up. And we're checking in. This is before Steve Weinberger ran the NPC. It was Carl Campagna. Carl Campagna was. You think Steve's got a bad time? Carl Campagna was like, if you showed up 10 minutes late, you weren't competing. That's the way he was. So it was a very scary atmosphere signing up for the show because it was very official, and they made it seem like it was like you were signing up for the Army or something like that. So I was nervous. It was I still really was new to the sport. I didn't really know a lot of people, and all of a sudden I see this huge, tall person with it looked like they had a horse's mane of hair. I think it was hair extensions or a wig, walking down and saying, ho, 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 ho. Like, I remember the laugh. It was like Santa Claus. And I'm like, who the fuck is that? And I had known, I've been reading the magazines, and I've seen her in magazines. I'm like, is that Nicole Bass? They're like, yeah, it's Nicole. I think it's Nicole Bass. And, she looked like scary. I'll tell you what. And she was all tanned up. And I'm like, what is she doing here? She's a pro, isn't she? No, she's not a pro. She re-qualified for nationals, which were going to be the following week, I guess.
What year?
92.
Okay.
So she was in the show. She was obviously the biggest person in the show, but there was actually another girl, a Brazilian girl. Her name was Simone. I don't remember what her last name was. Who wasn't tall. She was short, but she was jacked. Her legs were crazy. Her back was. She actually beat Nicole. Nicole was second. And I think Nicole actually passed out at the night show on stage because she was drunk. But the true story, she was drunk. But this girl, Nicole didn't win. It was the biggest. There was 3 giant women. That was back when it was only women's bodybuilding. There were 3 giant women in the heavyweight class. It was seriously like a national. It was like the Olympia at that show. I couldn't believe the size of these women. And that was the first time I met her, and I was so intimidated. I didn't want to talk to her. And like maybe a year later, I met her someplace else. And I brought that up to her, and she's like, "Oh, you should have come up and said." Because she was the nicest person. She was intimidating looking, but she was the nicest person you'll ever meet. Did you and Laura ever have any run-ins with them? Her and Bob?
No, I helped her for the '91 nationals.
Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think it was '91. She got second, and
she was right up there back then. Yeah.
Yes, she got second. Nikki Fuller.
Nikki Fuller, yeah.
Yeah, she was tremendous. Got first.
Right.
She was fabulous. She was a phenomenal bodybuilder, and I was let's see. I was living in LA, and like they came out like 6. They camped out like 6. They came out 6 weeks earlier, 4 weeks earlier.
Oh, really?
And Bob used to hang out in front of Gold's. Dave, her husband, used to hang out in front of the gym in the parking lot with his clothes on. What was the name of their gym?
The Natural Body or Natural something.
Natural Physique, New York.
Natural Physique, right.
And he wore the clothes like the Crips and the Bloods, right? The Crips and you know what I mean? Like he wore that his clothes.
It was jacket. It was a good gym back in the day. It was like a dungeon type of gym in the city there. That it was in a very, very busy part of the city. It wasn't this big gym. It was small, but they had hardcore equipment in there, and they had a lot of famous people train there.
Yeah, and he used to hang out in front of all day long.
Yeah, he would never. I never seen Bob work out. Not one day. Never seen him work out.
He would hang out in front of Gold's.
Just talking.
My office was there all day, and most of the day he'd say, "Wait till you see, Nicole. She's going to win the nationals. She's going to win the Olympia."
Yeah, he loved to brag about her. Yeah.
Oh, he'd be all day long, and he looked like he owned the Gold's gym, even though he had his mannerisms, the way he would parade.
Yeah.
Out in front of the gym. That's why. When you said, you thought that maybe she lost her WWE contract because of him. I of course, I would agree with that.
Bob was into everyone's business. He was into everyone's business.
He would hang out in front of the gym all day long. And if you walked by, if Jay Cutler walked by, or Dorian, or Lee Haney, or Mike Menser, anyone, just pick a name.
He'd stop
just picking names. He'd stop them and get into their business.
Well, he was probably...
And ultimately brag about, which
Nicole,
which is endearing, about Nicole because he loved her.
Right. Well, he probably was backstage bad-mouthing Vince McMahon to these wrestlers. Can you believe Vince is not paying for the taxi ride over or something like that, or the limo ride over? Guaranteed. I guarantee he was doing shit like that. Meanwhile, Nicole was lucky to fucking have the gig. She was making over $100,000 a year. She was traveling. They were making her famous, but it didn't go to Nicole's head. It went to Bob's head. That's what happened. It went to Bob's head. He thought she was. That's it. She made it. Hollywood. She's gonna be she's gonna be the next Arnold Schwarzenegger. That's what Bob thought. You should have seen the two.
I know it is.
They bought her a Corvette. She couldn't drive. She had no driver's license. I'm like, Bob, why did you buy her this Corvette? She doesn't have a driver's license. It's in the garage up on stilts or something, whatever. He had it up on a lift. I said, but you're not driving it, though. He's like, well, she's going to get her license eventually. It's a collector's item. Like, they would thought that they made it. That's it. They thought
Dave? When did they get the Corvette?
Right, when she was working with WWE? No, when she was with the WWE because she was making good money. They were like, "That's it. We made it."
You got to tell Jay that. You got to tell Jay that story.
It wasn't just a regular Corvette. It was like the how they at the Indianapolis 500 they have the car that does the first lap. It was like the ceremonial Corvette. It was all done up and striped up and everything like that, and pinstriped. It was fucking awesome looking. I'm like, Bob, you can't drive this car around the street. He goes, it's a collector's item. He's like, Nicole doesn't have her license yet anyway. I'm like, but why'd you buy this? He didn't know. He wanted to buy something, you know what I mean? To show that they had made it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they were still living in this little apartment in Queens,
Oh, I'm sure. So, well, when he was out in Gold's Venice, here I am in Gold's Venice. I get an office next door.
Right.
And honestly, Dave, till this day, you're just telling me for the first time that they had a small gym in New York.
Yeah.
He made it sound like it was bigger than Gold's Venice.
No, tiny. Nothing in New York is big. You know that.
I know, but that's the way he made it when he explained it to me. That's the way he, I always envisioned it as, and if you look at the apparel that they had, his jacket, he had the leather jacket that said Natural Physique New York, and she had the, 6 feet 8 inches tall, with the big jacket that said, Natural Physique. I figured the jackets are so impressive that the gym must be insane.
I went in there once. This is actually before I could. Actually, I should preface. I actually had met Nicole before I saw her that day at the show. But maybe 2 years before that, I was in medical school, and my friends and I were in the city, and we're like eating, and we're like, "Oh, that's Natural Physique. Let's go in there and take a look." I think Nicole Bass and her husband own that gym. Because I was back then. You knew everyone because of the magazines. Because they would put people in the magazines, and I read those magazines like a rabid fan. So we would go in there, and Nicole. The only person in the gym is Nicole behind the desk. This huge woman behind the desk, and I'm like, "Holy shit, it's Nicole!" And I was actually intimidated by her, And I'm like, "Oh, can we look around the gym?" And I wasn't big at the time. I was just really, maybe 215 pounds, something like that, off season. And she's like, "Yeah, go look around." And we went and walked around, and it was like a typical New York City, little crazy place. But they had you couldn't shoehorn another piece of equipment into that gym. They had so much equipment in there. And it was a destination place for a lot of people. Bruce Cardenas, who a lot of people don't realize was a New York City cop who works for Quest now. He's all over the world with Quest. You see him at every Quest booth. Bruce used to train at that gym. There's a picture he posted on his Facebook of him with Nicole Bass. I couldn't even believe it was him. In a tank top he had on. He was, training at the gym, and it was just him and Nicole at the gym, and it was a great picture. So a lot of people had a lot of run-ins with Nicole Bass over the years in terms of meeting her in weird places. My friend John Manello texted me a picture. He ran into Nicole Bass at Motor Vehicles or something like that in Queens or something like that, and he took a picture with her 2 weeks ago.
I thought she didn't have the license.
I think she wound up getting the license after Bob died, but it's crazy where so many people knew her from all over the place. One of the really fun events was Jimmy Pulleccia had opened a Nutrisport store where they sold nutritional supplements for a while, and he had a grand opening there. And he invited Nicole Bass, Dick Dudley, who died. He was a wrestler, me, and Frank Zeppi. Those were the people who made the appearance at the store for him. And there's a great picture. I got to find it somewhere of I think all of us, Frank, me, Dick Dudley, Jimmy, and Nicole. It's a classic picture. It must be in my file cabinet someplace. I got to find it. And the weird thing was I wanted to put the picture in a frame because I had it hung on my wall in my old house, and I had folded back one of the pictures, one of the people in the picture, just to make it fit because I was too lazy to reprint the thing out. And I folded back Dick Dudley, who wound up dying like a week later after I did that. I felt like I was like a soothsayer or something like that. And but it's a good picture. Yeah, Nick, it's a sad thing. I really liked her a lot. I thought she was a good person, and hate to see people like that die so early, especially when you and me are 50 now or close to it.
I thought of that.
She's only 52. She died.
When I saw that she was 52,
she was in there whole time. Now, did you think when you saw her in '91 and you were helping her, did you say, "Hey, this girl you think she can wind up on top 5 at the Olympia stage"? Did you think if she had her head together? She had a good structure.
Yeah, she had. You nailed it. She had a tremendous structure, and because she was so tall, right? Okay, I mean, she was so tall and so oddly big in real life. Like, she gave the appearance of much taller than even she was. What was she, like 6'2", 6'3"?
6'2".
And when she got on, I remember going to the show, and when she got on stage, she looked so crazy on stage because of her height. That she was, that she had great flow. It's hard to have great flow. She had great legs, uniquely shaped legs.
Yeah.
Tiny waist, big delts. She just went up against Nikki Fuller, who was like off the charts for that show. But I thought she could. I thought she'd be a decent pro. I didn't think, it goes back to the quote from Jay Cutler: "You have to have no social life, none." She loved having a social life.
Yeah, she was way too distracted. She needed to go to Oxygen Gym. That's what she needed.
Absolutely, she needed to be sequestered.
You think Beta would have brought Nicole Bass out there? Probably, right?
Good publicity, yeah.
I mean, they don't like women out there, but she might have been an exception to the rule.
Yeah, it may work, but she was just she was a social butterfly. She loved being in the middle of everything. So
she liked drinking too.
I thought that was like a distraction. Going forward, I thought like. I don't know if this girl's going to be a.
Yeah, I think she had an alcohol problem too earlier in her career.
Oh yeah, you're right. She did. She told me she did. But Bob would tell me outright, she's going to be Miss Olympia, and I would, like disagree with him and he'd get pissed, and that's probably why I only helped her for one show.
Right. Well, I think Bob's problem was that Bob was her greatest supporter, but also her worst,
enabler.
Yeah, enabler. So. He was good for her ego and good for her, promoting her, but he was terrible for her because he was the worst person to advise her. He should have just remained a cheerleader. He wanted to control everything, and that was the problem, I think, because he was not good at doing everything. He was not he didn't interact well with people. He pissed a lot of people off, and because he was too aggressive. And,
he used to take it should be dieting, Dave. She would complain to me that should be dieting, and I'd say, like meal 4 would be like, 10 ounces of chicken breast or, 10 ounces of fish or whatever in a salad. And he'd take her out to like some New York City restaurant and she'd have to order that. He'd order like, 2 meals. He'd order like veal parmesan and then, an appetizer, this and that. And he'd say, "Hey, this is what you're supposed to eat. You're supposed to eat that, Nicole. That's all you can have." And
she'd drink 14 glasses of wine.
Yeah, they would butt heads on that,
they used to fight a lot too, and their fights were loud too because she was loud.
Yeah, they used to fight everywhere. They'd fight in the Gold's Gym parking lot. I remember that getting a fight.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
It was like a loving fight though because like I said, I've never seen a couple. They really they worked somehow. As dysfunctional as it looked, they worked. They never ever broke up. They were together, until Bob died.
True. That was definitely true love. Those two for sure. Yeah.
They were made for each other without a doubt.
Yeah, that's why I asked. It's too bad that you didn't get. There was no chance for you to sit down and do like an in-depth interview with her because it'd probably be great.
I had reached out. You know what? I don't think the interview would have been that good these last couple of years because I just don't think that she was as mentally astute as she was when she was younger. But I have to go back. There definitely wasn't. I definitely had her on something. I know I interviewed her for something, so I got to get her on. I got to look it up on the website. Maybe we'll put it up on the YouTube channel as like a special tribute to her, because she was a unique person in our industry. And if you never met her, a lot of people met her, but if you never met her, she changed you when you met her, because she just was different, and she was very loving, and she would hug you, and and she just. You can't forget her after that. She had a lasting impression on people. It's even if you didn't like her, you couldn't be mad at her. She just was that kind of a person.
I'm laughing. I'm going to spit my cashew out. Listen, the first time I met her in person, when she came out to California, like the 6 weeks out, and she and Bob came to meet me in my office, and she gave me just like an awkward hug. And
you don't hug people to begin with, Chris.
No, I tried to retreat.
She probably crushed your ribs.
I took like a step back, and she took a step towards me. I remember to this day, and she looked down on me, right? Because she's so tall, right?
Yeah.
And then I took like another step back, and then she just like did like an NFL just like tackled me to get we're gonna get this hug over with.
Yeah, Chris is not the hugging type.
She commented on that too.
Oh, she did?
She commented on that right to me, like, you don't like to hug or something. And I didn't know if I did or didn't.
Chris, you don't like to be hugged? Chris? The best thing was when she was on Howard Stern, they used to, whenever she would be on, they played the Herman Munster laugh. The Herman Munster, ho, 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 ho. She had a very deep voice, And Howard she was on the show, and Howard was convinced that she was a man in disguise. And so he said, look, if you want to convince me that you're not a man, because he would always call her a man, and he said, you're going to have to go in the bathroom with Robin, and Robin's going to have to inspect and make sure that you don't have any male parts down there. And so I remember the show vividly, because it used to be on the E! Network. They actually filmed it. So she went into the bathroom with Robin, and they both came out like 5 minutes later. And Howard's like, so, is she a woman or a man? And Robin's like, I'm not sure. He goes, she's like definitely a woman, but there's extra stuff down there. And they broke her balls, constantly, and she just doesn't give a shit. She knew about comedy, and she knew about taking it, because if some people would have gotten insulted, they would have been back on the show. Howard would have been, get her, we don't want her on the show anymore. But she played along with them, and she did not have a problem laughing at herself. And so she was on there a lot. I mean, for many years. And recently she was on a lot. She would go to, and Howard used to, Howard felt bad for these whack packers because he would make fun of them. So he would get them events. They would do whack pack events, like they'd do comedy clubs, and he'd get them paid. A lot of these guys made a lot of money, and they would, and I mean, Nicole was way more functional than most of the whack packers that he had working for him. But I know he was helping her earn money the last couple of years of life, because she had no money coming in. I know she was on disability, but I don't think that she was, it was enough to support her. But so Howard was very, very, very generous to her. Anyway, also who died this past weekend, George the Animal Steele, who was one of the original
I didn't know.
wrestlers.
First thing that comes to my mind is that he was a principal.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was an elementary school principal. That was his original profession.
Wow.
How old was he? God, he had to be up there, huh?
Yeah, he was in his 70s.
He's got to be higher than that, right? 70s. So? I mean, I'm 50, dude. I was watching him when I was like, right?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, he was around a long time.
He had the purple tongue.
It's a great name. I love the nickname, George the Animal Steele.
Think of how wacky wrestling just is, but ahead of his time was, right? I mean, it was like the original reality. It was like, people watch the Kardashians now, or
79
reality TV.
79.
Yeah, they'd watch wrestling in the old days.
Yeah, and they loved it. And the people who watched wrestling...
My grandparents used to watch wrestling.
My dad thought it was beneath him. He wouldn't do that. But my dad was an elitist. But back then, people... He
wouldn't even eat at cafeteria restaurant. What would he do?
My dad was very elitist. Back then, people who watched wrestling would fight you to the death if you told them that it wasn't real. Nowadays, we know it's all made up. Yeah, they thought it was real. You would insult them if you told them that it wasn't real.
Yeah. It's kind of like Trump now. If you tell him the news is real, he says it's fake. If you tell him it's fake, how's that work?
George the Animal Steele, a.k.a. William
No, it's-
James Myers, passed away at the age of 79. The pro wrestler's death was confirmed by his wife, Patricia, who revealed that he passed from kidney failure last night in Florida. He'd been in hospice. You're right. The Animal was a very well-educated man. Prior to breaking into sports entertainment, Steele received his master's degree from Central Michigan University, became a high school teacher and wrestling coach in the Detroit area. Didn't know that. Steele's first WWE appearance took place in 1967 when he began a heated rivalry with WWE champion Bruno Sammartino.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, that's crazy. Let me see what else. For nearly 20 years, Steele was a reviled villain managed by the likes of fellow WWE Hall of Famers, the Grand Wizard, Classy Freddie Blassie, Captain Lou Albano, and Mr. Fuji. His classic main events against Sammartino and Pedro Morales and Bob Backlund saw him come close to winning the WWE Championships on many occasions. Steele was embraced by the WWE Universe and changed the course of his career. After the Iron Sheik and Nicholas Volkov abandoned him during a match, Steele fell back under the tutelage of the then beloved Lou Albano. They got the whole shtick out here, the whole shtick. But he was one of those big, he was like a strong, muscular guy, but he also had a lot of body fat and hair on him. He was a real he looked like an animal.
Yeah.
He was a really scary looking dude. Probably the nicest guy in person, I'm sure.
Yeah. You probably see him at Golden Corral.
Yeah, probably.
Before he died.
He probably lived right around the corner. I would have not have known. Yeah.
Well, that's the type of people who go to the older retired people go to the Golden Corral near your house.
Yeah, and me, who's now 49, going there too.
Yeah.
You have to start young, so by the time I'm 60, I know the whole layout of the place. They actually added a few new dishes. They got salmon there now. Can you believe it?
Oh. Yeah, because of you, or
I don't know. They just changed the menu. Baked salmon they got. It's delicious.
Is it local salmon, or is it imported from China? And,
probably
grown up.
It's probably grown in fish tanks. I'm sure it's farm raised. Can't be good for you. Can't be good for you. Can't be good for you.
Yeah, all you can eat. Every time I eat shrimp now, I think of China. Or tilapia, right?
Tilapia.
You don't eat tilapia, do you?
No. Well, you know what? Probably at Golden Corral I'm eating tilapia for all I know. The white fish there has got to be tilapia. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Kai Green, put it this way. If Kai Green's still alive, then tilapia can't be that bad for you because that kid ate 10 pounds a day for God knows how many years, And he's still kicking. So.
No.
Still got to be better than eating a lot of red meat. That's my belief.
What are the science? What's the scientific study say? We'll have to call in Blackman and find out.
Too much arachidonic acid.
What I want to know is David Bay going to show up in Ohio to help us do the wrap up?
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Pre-game.
We'll see if he's going to be there. So
how far is Wisconsin from?
What?
How far is Wisconsin from Columbus? Pretty far, I guess.
Pretty far, yeah. Yeah, I bet he shows up. Let me ask you this question. I don't know if you saw I did a little. John and I did an Iron Rage on it, but Boston Lloyd posted something about Frank Zane, saying that he looked like smashed assholes when he competed, and he didn't understand why people thought he was good, and that he should never have been Mr. Olympia. So we did a whole thing about how people in our sport have no clue of the history of the sport and how it's evolved, and people think Rich Piana should be Mr. Olympia, and that's the Boston Lloyd generation. And I actually got Boston. I actually called him on the phone while we were doing the show, and that's just Boston Lloyd's opinion. But do you think that the younger generation disrespect the older generation, that they don't really understand that bodybuilding is a sport of evolution?
Well, I think the world is something. You can evolution. Everything evolves. People can build 120-story buildings now, but in the 20s, in the 30s, people were building 60-story buildings and 70-story buildings in New York City that are still standing today and are nicer square foot per square foot in terms of durability, strength, integrity of the construction as well as any building built today. And they didn't have the quote technology that we have today. Things evolve. The idea of criticizing, Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile, knowing zero probably about nutrition, knowing zero about lifting weights, knowing zero Boston about anabolic steroids. And it was, a groundbreaker in its day.
Yeah.
Just because people are doing something different today, Warren Buffett has a lot of wealth, but it doesn't compare to really Cleopatra. I'm serious.
Yeah.
Or it doesn't compare necessarily to J.P. Morgan or the Rockefellers, what they had at that point in time. I mean, we have the internet now. Wow. Well, we used to have the railroads. The railroads were the original internet that connected everyone, everyone everywhere. So, getting back to bodybuilding, Frank Zane, probably took probably took as much steroids in a contest prep than, Boston Lloyd takes in a week.
In a day.
Well, I mean, and that's a fact. I know what Samir Bannout didn't use. I won't tell you what he did use because it's insanely, ridiculously small when he won the Olympia.
Sure.
I'm serious. People would say, I listened to RxMuscle, Chris Aceto lying for Samir Bannout and Samir Bannout lying to him, and Chris is dumb enough to believe Samir. Okay, whatever. People didn't take what people take these days. People in men's physique division
take more.
Yes. I worked with Bob Paris. I know where he got his cycles from. Those were, people would just laugh at what he didn't take. Right? He looked pretty damn good. I think Bob Paris, some of his best looks would do pretty damn, decent today. And not using what people use today.
You know what? I bet you people looked better structurally back then because no one took a lot of steroids. So if you didn't have a good structure, you couldn't do well in bodybuilding. So, you couldn't compensate.
What is Boston Lloyd's point? What is the point he thinks he's making? Because he's making no point.
No. I think he's just trying to stir the waters.
Grasp it. He's not stirring something. He's grasping at straws.
He just likes to make controversial statements that will garnish him. People.
Well, that's not even controversial because it's
he thinks that Frank Zane looked like shit. He doesn't think he looked good, and he doesn't think he can't believe that he was Mr. Olympia. That's his shtick.
Part of that is I would go back to Frank Zane obviously had no striated glutes, neither did Samir Bannout. Go back and look at some of the pictures of Samir Bannout. And I know it's not Frank Zane, but 83 when he won. I mean, the level of muscular detail is insane.
Yeah.
And Samir, get him on the show. He will tell you, training next to Frank Zane, I know what Samir would say. I see him, he looks like a tennis player until he takes his shirt off and hits a pose. And what he means by that is what Chad, one of the things that Chad said a long time ago that I couldn't agree 1,000 times more with him is he was talking about someone, he said, they had the right skin. People don't even know what that means. When you have paper thin skin, I mean paper transparent skin, you look in real life like something, and that's what Samir had. That's what Chris Dickerson had. That's what people in that period of time had, including Frank Zane. Right. They didn't need, diuretics for 9 weeks to thin their skin out.
Right.
They were on a diuretic low carb diet, right?
That makes sense. Makes sense.
I mean, it's like saying, Arnold was nothing, because Coleman's chest and shoulders are better than Arnold's. Well, you're only as good as your competition. You're breaking ground. You don't even know what's the possibility of possible is, right?
I agree. All right, I want to go to our quote of the week, and I want to do some Ask the Technician and Ask Dave questions because people seem to like that segment, and I know we've been going for a long time already. But my quote of the week, which I haven't done in a while, is about complainers. And I believe that people who complain a lot create terrible shit in their life. And you see this all the time. The people who have the worst luck, who get sick, are the biggest complainers. And it's because you get what you think about. You get what you talk about. And here's the quote. Most people do not realize that as they continue to find things to complain about, they disallow their own physical well-being. Many do not realize that before they were complaining about an aching body or chronic disease, they were complaining about many other things first. It does not matter if the object of your complaint is about someone you are angry with, behavior in others that you believe is wrong, or something wrong with your own physical body. Complaining is complaining, and it disallows improvement. What does that mean? It means stop complaining. Talk about what you want. Don't talk about what you don't want in your life. I have a client.
It's a barrier and a fence.
Yeah, I have a client. All she does is tell me about how this hurts her and that hurts her, and her stomach doesn't work, and she can't poop. She poops too much. She has low blood sugar. She has high blood sugar. Everything, and I think she just creates more and more problems in her body because that's all it's like her body just keeps giving her what she's complaining about, more and more of it. Rather than say, I feel good, you know what, this was the first day I actually felt good, I have energy in the gym, I see myself improving, I'm getting leaner. Talk about the good shit in your life. Don't talk about the bad stuff. And I'm just as guilty of that. I catch myself. I'm taking a shower in the morning, and my left shoulder, both shoulders are terrible. But my left shoulder is really, really bad. I'm trying to plan a date to get this thing replaced, and I'm like, and I almost catch myself complaining about it. I'm like, I'm going to stop. I'm going to stop talking about it because I'm just attracting more negativity to my life. Don't talk about what you don't want. Don't think about what you don't want. Dismiss it. Think about what's good in your life. There's plenty of good to find. You don't have to bring up the bad all the time. And I try to tell my dad about this. He's like, that's hocus pocus bullshit. But my dad's miserable, so it's obviously not because he's not listening to me. But trust me, don't complain. No one wants to hear people hear you complaining too. That's the one thing that you think if you complain, you make you feel better about yourself, but you're pissing everyone else off around you. Don't complain. Unless you have a serious problem. That's a different story. Then you could bring it up. But don't go around saying how bad your life is because you're just going to have more terrible stuff happen to you. I promise you that. I promise you that.
Yeah, no. I mean, the more you think negative, the more negative things happen to you, and the more you think positive, you don't even have to think positive.
Just think about what you want. Think, what do I want in my life? And just fixate on it. Fixate on it. Think about it. Dream about it. When you're laying in bed at night, this is what I used to do. I still do it sometimes. I make fantasy dreams. Like I'm like, oh, I wanna get this car. I'll say something that people can relate to, not my crazy stuff. I want this specific car. I'll just think about the car. I'll think about going out and buying it. I'll think about sitting in it. I'll think about driving it. And you know what? Before you know it, somehow something comes along that enables you to buy this car. So everything in life is like that. Think about what you want before you go to sleep and fall asleep thinking about it. That's the best thing I can tell you. That's the best advice.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you.
I mean, I'm sure, and I don't want to get distracted. I'm sure you've thought about like places that you wanted to buy, apartments or houses or whatever, condos, and you didn't have the money at the time or something like that, but you just keep thinking about, and somehow something comes along and just enables you to get that.
I'll tell this bizarre little quick story. I was looking at this. There's these brownstones that I sent the picture to like Jay. I sent it to Arash Ravar, and they don't come for sale. Period. They don't come for sale. They don't come for sale because people like if they die, they leave them to their kids and this and that. So I tell my broker, the real estate broker, I'm interested in this brownstone area, and she says, oh, they don't come available ever. I know I've been in this market 20 years. I said, I've been thinking a lot about it lately, so they're gonna come available. So she's like, no, they don't. So I meet this guy for coffee one day, big, huge, real estate guy, and out of the blue, we're having coffee, and he says, would you like to buy a 5-unit? It's like a 5-unit apartment building. It's crazy high end within this giant row of brownstones.
Right.
And I go like this. No. He says, what are you talking about? No. I said, they don't come available. I know what he's going to say. He said, they're available. I said, no, they don't come available. I'm playing devil's advocate with him. He said, they're mine. I'm willing to sell them just like to you only.
Wow.
And I'm like, of course you are. And he says, why? I said, because I've been thinking about that brownstone for like a year.
That's funny.
I even told my broker that they're going to come, that I'm interested in that. And she said, they never come available. I said, oh, they'll come available.
That's so funny.
Of course, he wanted to whack me with some insane price, which...
Did you want to buy it?
No, I can't. It's just, he wants insane money, you know, but
the
idea that,
sure.
And I said, why would you ever want to sell him? You know, I'm 64 years old. I've had him since I was 32.
Right. He wants to cash out.
I want to go to Florida. You know, I don't want to pay the commission by putting it on the market. You know, I like you. And the whole
did you make him a low ball offer?
Yeah, I did. You know, Dave, I won't. You know what he said?
What?
Okay. Whatever. I'll just make up a number.
Yeah.
Just $1 million. Just say.
Yeah.
He goes, I'll sell him for $1 million, and I go, okay, sure. And so I decide, okay, I'll have coffee with him next week, and I'll lowball him.
Yeah.
And I said, so I meet him, and I said, how's 700? He goes, how's 1.3?
So it didn't go that well.
Yeah, so I know where he's at.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is, you know what, if I'm thinking about him, of course the whole entire world is thinking about him, so he could put him on the market tomorrow, and someone's dumb enough, crazy enough to pay some insane amount of money just to have him, you know?
Unbelievable. I'm looking at
anyways,
I'm looking at a text message from one of my complaining clients.
You get what you think about is your, just goes back to your idea of the car, thinking about the car and dreaming about the car, and then you find a way to get the car.
Yeah.
But the danger is that is if you think about poor health and you think about negativity and you think, you know what I mean, just the opposite, that stuff comes to you. You know, all the negative stuff comes. That's got to be an interesting text message.
Yeah, I think I want to... Spoke to my doctor. He said I got so sick because the first doctor didn't properly diagnose me or treat me, and I kept working and training and living because I didn't know I was so sick. Actually, high tolerance for being so compromised. It is going to take a long time to... it is going to take as long as it took to be sick to fully feel my best. So do as I think and eat and nourish and get the body, but get oxygen in. So cardio and yoga for lungs and work out and stretch because meds stiffen all muscles and joints. Drink tons of water if you want sauna. That's the text message. I didn't annotate it, read it exactly. This is the person. That's all they do is complain. And that's why they get just more and more sickness into their life. So, all right, let's go to Ask the Technician and Ask Dave. If people want to ask questions to Chris and I, you can submit the questions from Asking Dave to Chris at Aceto at RxMuscle.com. If you want to ask Chris any questions, you can submit them to me at huge285 at AOL.com. I actually have a bunch of questions for you. So first question is, Chris, will you ever work with Dennis Wolf?
You'll have to play the video where he hates RxMuscle, so the answer to that would be no.
Oh, he does?
Right? Yeah, didn't you? You know what? I was thinking, recently I was in Europe, and I said, hey, Dennis, can we do an interview? And he went like crazy on me.
Oh, really?
And he's like, I don't like RxMuscle. I said, what? And didn't John ask Johnny about the story? And then
right. I think I remember
me and Dennis got into it for the longest. We're fighting about nonsense, and he's like, well, Dave Palumbo said something negative about me. I said, okay, did you win the Olympia? And he said, no. And I said, okay, so probably I said, did you get second? He said, no. I said, did you get third? He said, no. What did he get, fourth, I think?
Third or something like that.
Fourth. Yeah. No, it was fourth. He got fourth. And I said, okay, so you get fourth. So probably, some of the judges might have had something negative. I mean, the only ones the judges didn't have something negative to say about Phil, and that's it. Everyone else had something negative about. And then once we got into that context, we got around about we did a great interview. I think it was in FIBO or...
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember. That was a couple years ago, yeah.
Spain, but,
if he contacted you, would you work with him?
I may consider it.
Okay.
I mean, I don't mean that in like a pompous, I may schedule it in. I don't get too excited about working with people. That's not a negative. It doesn't mean that I don't enjoy it, but just, you can only help so many people in a year anyway, right?
Yep. All right. Next question.
And let me add to that. Let me add to that is, I always had to say this to everyone. I mean, how much can you really help him? He's already been, right up there. I mean,
yeah. Well, now he's making the comeback after the injury, so who knows? Who knows? All right. Hi, Dave. Really enjoy listening to Heavy Muscle Radio and appreciate the variety of topics. A question for the technician: Are physique competitors guys that just can't get big, or do they just train and eat differently?
You know what? That's a great question. I think they've probably been training less total number of years. That's one reason they don't, quote, look like bodybuilders or look like blasted out. They probably use less anabolics, but not always, than bodybuilders. And they, there's a very concrete criteria that they have for the look that wins, right? So it's like you can't take the top 3 guys at the Olympia and blow them up 12 pounds and have them still look like board short guys.
Right.
It's making the conscious decision of, for some of those guys, if they wanted to be bodybuilders, do I want to be bodybuilders? I don't think it's got to be, it's probably a big food issue, right? I mean, if they wanted to gain 12 pounds, some of them could. Yeah. And maybe their structures would end up looking different. Maybe they'd thicken up in the waist. It
seems like a lot of these men's physique guys are moving up to classic physique, and that's kind of like it's like a stepping stone, and then maybe they'll want to go up to bodybuilding after that. Who knows? You never know.
Yeah, maybe we'll see a Dexter. Maybe we'll see someone come from board shorts right to Mr. Olympia, where Dexter came from bantamweight to dominating.
That's right. Hey, Dave, please ask Chris these 3 questions. Number 1, how Mike Francois would do if he was competing in today's era?
If in good health, he'd do tremendous.
Okay. Would he be top 5 at the Olympia?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, Mike Francois versus Jay Cutler. Who was better in their prime?
Jay, because Mike never hit his prime.
Right. I agree. Did you ever meet 3? Did you ever meet the chemist Amin Ali? And did you? And
only he's been chasing down Jay since Jay was 19. You got to ask Jay about that. It's funny, there was no internet, Or I think Jay might have had dial-up at like 20 or 21. But Jay was like at 20 or 21 in like Muscle Mag and stuff.
Sure.
And he had that big giant show out in California where he came out at 21 or 22 and like blasted people, and then he was in all the magazines. And at the end, they would have like his address in Massachusetts, so people would write him letters. And I think he might have had like a phone number there.
Right.
But Amin's number, the chemist, rings a bell because, I have the nickname the technician because it's so ridiculous, it's so obnoxious, and it's stupid. It's like a parody. But he called himself the chemist then.
Yeah.
And he was like in touch with Jay somehow way back then.
Yeah, he was the original George Farah
offering chemistry services.
Right. He was the original Farah, like trying to poach clients,
Yeah, no, that's right. He would try to get Jay as like a quote client when people didn't even have clients. I mean, I was helping people just because I knew them.
Right.
There was like no business model. But I think he's still around because I think Jay might have Jay, unlike me and you who are like entering our dementia years, Jay should go into Guinness Book of World Records as he might not have the top 10 memories of all time, but in terms of in the sport of bodybuilding, there's no one who will have memory like
he
that.
He remembers everything,
He would remember your dog's name from like junior high, or your neighbor's dog's name, or what your neighbor's dog used to love to eat when you'd go over his house.
That's great.
I mean, his mental capacity is incredible. Yeah. So Jay remembers all these people.
Yeah. All right. Technician, do you have your guys eat beef in the off season, or is it chicken turkey just as good? Or is chicken and turkey just as good? If so, it paired with low carb meals or placed a specific time of the day. Also, do you prefer off season each day to be about the same amount of carbs, or do you like to spike them some on heavier days like legs or back?
How many questions were that? The beef for chicken. beef and chicken. I have people. People eat beef off season and pre-contest.
Yeah.
You know, I know a lot of people like to run to the extra. They'll say okay, now we're going to all fish. 6 weeks out or something, and most people just fall apart on all fish.
Yeah.
They're just bodies will fall apart, literally. Not
enough arachidonic acid. That's why. You need that arachidonic acid, not to make it fun, not to mock Blackman, but arachidonic acid is not found in fish or eggs, egg whites at least. It's found in chicken, turkey, red meat. That's why bodybuilders grow better on that, because you do need you need that inflammatory, and that essential fatty acid. Even though most of us eat too much of it, you do need it to build muscle, and there's no way around it. That's why if you just eat an all-fish diet, like you said, Chris, you don't feel as strong, you don't feel as full, you don't grow as well. I know a lot of guys that eat just tuna fish all day long, because it's cheap. They buy the packets of tuna and they mix it with rice, and you're not going to grow a lot of muscle on that. You do need some inflammatory fats in your body and inflammatory proteins in the body. So. But do you prefer off-season to be the same amount of carbs each day, Chris, or do you change them up?
I keep them fairly steady. It's off-season, so people just, by definition, since it's off-season, if they want to have cheat meals and this and that, it's like, should I schedule a cheat meal? Just, what do you mean schedule it? If you just, if you feel like eating your, higher McDonald's today, it's not gonna. You're eating 6 meals a day. You eat McDonald's today, and your carbs are steady at the rest of the meals. It's not a big deal. Yep.
Okay, that's it for you. Give me 2 questions, and then we'll wrap things up because I know we're running out of time here.
Okay, I got to log into those questions. Okay, let's see. Hi, Dave and Chris. I hate the show. What do you think about the transformation of Brandon Curry? Is it the gear? The anabolic gear, or is it the anabolic chicken that's over there?
It's the anabolic environment. And we spoke about this earlier. We really did. It's a secluded environment where guys can focus on one thing and one thing only, bodybuilding. And for people who are easily distracted, they do well there. The people who are not easily distracted will not do well there, or they won't be better there. That's all. I think Brandon had a lot going on in his life with his wife and his kids, and maybe he wasn't as focused at home as he is there. And I think he will benefit from being there. But I don't think Akeem Williams is going there and he's going to come back bigger. I think he might be a better poser. He might have better presentation. He might have some more detail, and that's good. That's what he needed. So that's why I told him to go there. You send a guy like Guy Cisternino there, like we mentioned earlier, and he'll probably do worse because he needs the chaos around him because he's already. No one can be more focused than Guy Cisternino. Let me tell you an idea how much Guy Cisternino, how focused he is. He writes, and I've said this before, and people probably thought it was a joke, but it's the truth. He writes down every time he goes to the bathroom in his little journal. He writes down every time he goes to the bathroom. Who does that, Chris? No one.
Dave, I told you once. I remember the first time I went into his hotel room when he was doing the Chicago Pro, which he's probably listening now and say, "Oh, I should have won that show over Tricky Jackson," which I agree with him. And I said, "What did you eat yesterday, Guy?" And he says, "Right there in my journal." I'm like, "Oh," and I look at this journal that looks like it's like 500 pages. It goes back 8 years or something. And I said, "I just want to look at the diet that you ate yesterday," right?
Yeah.
So I look at the journal, and it's got all this detail of the workouts, right, and what he ate. And then on the bottom, he had notes in his little scribbly handwriting. It said, "bad dreams." And I just laughed. I started crying, laughing at the detail of, what's the matter? And I said, what do you have? What feedback do you get from bad dreams? I forgot his answer. Yeah. But he had written down bad dreams. So he journaled his diet, he journaled his training, and then he journaled his sleep, which is bad dreams.
Well, you know
maybe he dreamed that he was in second.
The truth is that if anyone ever goes back 20 years from now and wants to study his journals, it would be the most detailed bodybuilding, accounts that you could ever freaking imagine in your life. Looking at his stuff. I don't know if anyone would have the audacity or the desire to go back and read the bitter details of everything he's done over the last 20 years, but he certainly has it chronicled.
You want to listen. that.
I wish I chronicled my life like that, Chris, because I would have a great book to write. I'd actually have all the details written because I can't remember anything that I did.
Dave, one more funny side note about that interview with him, or two funny side notes, is I'm at the Olympia like last few years. I mean, I probably prepped for the Olympia. I can't even remember. I mean, just 12, 16, 18 people who've been in the Olympia, different people in like the last 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
Guy Sistanino at every show. In the hotel room, he's running around back, and he walks more in the hotel room. You know, you get these giant hotel suites in Vegas. He walks more in the hotel room. I don't know what he's even doing. Then the other bodybuilders I'm helping are going to walk all week.
Right.
Like they are like, you know, you go to their room, it's like dark, right? You know, you go to a bodybuilder's room, it's like dark.
Yeah.
The lights are off.
Yeah.
They're waiting for the next meal. They're either sleeping. The TV's on.
Right.
Guy is up. He's on the phone. He's running around in the room.
He's conducting business.
Yeah, it's just crazy. So
and everything is meticulously organized in this room too.
But what sticks out is people are just sleeping between meals and sleeping and farting up the room and sleeping and sleeping.
Yeah, he can't do that.
One day last year, I was stunned. Dave, I can barely get this out. He sat down and he fell asleep while he was talking to me. I've never seen him take a nap. He fell asleep while he was talking to me, and I let him sleep for about 12 minutes, and he woke up. He goes, "What just happened?"
That's good.
I said, "What do you mean, what just happened?" He said, "What, I fall asleep or something?" He said, "I was just talking to you, and he said, I must have been tired." Yeah. But I've never seen him take a nap. That was it. He fell asleep while talking.
Did he journal it? Did he put it in his journal that he fell asleep? I bet he's got it in there. I bet he can go back and tell you what day it happened on.
He probably thinks, I wonder if that affected my condition.
He should hire someone to take all his notes and transcribe them and put them into computer files so like that, you know, he could easily access things like in a database. Like what was the day that I had constipation? He puts constipation in all the journal entries that have the word constipation will pop up, you know.
No, he uses that fiberlize like it's a
I know he loves
cocaine.
He loves it. Yeah, he has 2 cases all the time at his house.
He brags that he gets constipated like unlike these other bodybuilders, like constipated like 2 days out of the year.
Well, he's my biggest advocate for fiberlize. So, all right, give me one more question.
There's another good question here
about.
Dear Dave, I would like to hear your thoughts on Phil Heath, the brand. Compared to, say, champs like Ronnie Coleman and Jay Cutler, I feel that Phil doesn't have the same star power, accessibility, and legend status as some of the other giants. Even though he is arguably the best bodybuilder in our current times, plus he has access to all the social media that his predecessors didn't have. So what's the take on the branding of Phil Heath?
Well, his social media following is enormous, in the millions. So he obviously does have reach in our industry. He makes a lot of money. He's got a great contract now with with Ultimate. He's winning the Olympia. He's winning $400,000 every year from that. He's doing very well financially. I think that the brand of a person really is not really determined until the person retires. The reason I'm going to say that is because while Dorian was doing this thing, he really was just focused on training. It wasn't until after he was done that he became more accessible, where people actually can understand the brand. And Jay Cutler, too. Jay had a very long career, so he was very popular, but he does more marketing now for himself than he ever did. So I think your brand is really defined once you're done. It's like a president. You really can't define how a presidency went until after the guy is out of office already. So I think that Phil... I think that Phil will always make money in our industry. I don't know. I think you'll find that when Phil retires that he's going to be way more approachable, personable type of bodybuilder because he's going to realize, hey, you know, I had this certain attitude while I was competing because I need to stay sharp. I needed to stay on top of myself. I didn't want to be soft. Now I could show you who the real Phil Heath is, and I believe that. I truly believe that. You know, I think that he has a certain attitude about himself because he needs that to stay on top of his game.
Well, I think part of implicit in the question, or stuck in that question, is the idea that pre-social media, you know, we would only have access to, and this is coming from a thesis of Jay's, essentially. Mm-hmm. We would have access to, a Coleman or a Cutler or a Gunter or a Wheeler, and it would have been a Phil Heath via, let's say, Flex, Muscle and Fitness, when they were very, Muscle and Fitness was very pro bodybuilding when Joe Weider was, running the ship. And you would have seen all these stories, as Jay would say, controlled stories, showing only the positive parts of Phil Heath, and only the positive parts of Haney or Gaspari. Now with, there's so much social media.
Everyone knows everything. Yeah.
Well, yeah, Phil gets caught speeding or whatever, and people are like, well, of course he's speeding. He's running from, Wolf, or, just the nonsense.
Well, people go online and they post, if they get into a fight with their spouse or their girlfriend or boyfriend, they go online and they air it online now. So no one's even trying to hide things anymore. It's like how much more in your face can you get than social media? Yeah. So, well, if you like these Ask Dave questions, you want to hear more, we do a TV show every Wednesday or Thursday called Ask Dave. You can listen to it on there. And if you don't want to miss any of our coverage, you can go to the RxMuscle YouTube channel and you can subscribe. We're over 71,000 now, Chris, subscribers. So we're rapidly approaching the 100,000 mark, which is my goal. And also, obviously, if you don't want to miss anything that's going on the RxMuscle website, the best place to go is rxmuscle.com, because that's going to show you exactly what the latest that's coming out is on whether it be radio, TV. It's funny. Johnny's been putting these radio shows up on the YouTube channel too, as just audio, and they've been getting 1 million hits on there too. So we have a lot of people who just tune into the YouTube channel, but then there's a lot of the originals, diehards who subscribe to the iTunes feed. Or if they have an Android phone, you can subscribe to that feed, and the shows will be downloaded audio-wise, at least the MP3s, directly to your computer or your phone. I just subscribe on my iTunes feed on the iPod store there, whatever it is, and I subscribe to the Heavy Muscle Show, and every week it just downloads the show automatically. I don't have to even worry about it. And then when I'm in the gym, if I want to listen to me and you bantering back and forth, I can do that. But if you like the Ask Dave questions, like I was saying, you can watch the TV show, or you can go and join my app. I have a Dave Palumbo Experience app. You can download it from your Android store or your iPhone store. It's $29 a month, and you get access to all my articles I've ever written, all the videos I've ever written. You get all your questions answered. I answer questions every day on there. Plus, I take the best questions and I do an exclusive Q&A video once a week on the app. No one else gets to see this, only the app subscribers. And they're really good questions because the people on the app are serious about bodybuilding, and they ask me some excellent questions. I'm shocked at some of the questions, how good they are. And I answer those, and there's updates on the app every single day. I submit updates. I have a partner who puts them up. There's workouts, there's diets, everything. You guys will love it. So check it out. Also, what else did I want to say? All this housekeeping stuff. What else did I want to say? I had one more announcement to make. Oh, people keep asking about my next guru course. When the next Secrets to Becoming a Diet Guru course is. I'm probably within the next week or two, I'll be able to set a date. It's going to either be the end of March or middle of April. It'll be out here in Florida. I'm just waiting for my facility to be finished so I can make an official date. But it will be on my facility.
Where?
Right at my house. The new offices we're building. Johnny actually shot a day in the life of Dave Palumbo the other day. He still hasn't edited it. I'm going to break his chops a little when he comes over today for his birthday. And people should, this way you can kind of see what the warehouse is going to look like. It's actually way more advanced than what it was in that video, but at least people can see an idea of what I do on a daily basis. And then once the warehouse is finished, we'll do another video, and you can show what it's like a day of life and work at the new warehouse. So that's going to be exciting. We're building out the new RxMuscle studios, and we got a lot of good stuff going on. And I'm excited to see you, Chris, over at the Arnold Classic in 2 weeks. Next week will be the Arnold Prediction Show. You guys are not going to want to miss that. This whole week we have a lot of original programming, from Jose Raymond interviews to predictions for the Arnold. We're going to have Iron Rage. We're going to have Iron Debate. Chris, you better find time to do these prediction shows because I know you're on vacation, but we got to get you in there. Your opinion is very warranted in these cases. Will Cedric McMillan be able to finally win his Arnold Classic, his first Arnold Classic title? We will find out, and we will analyze all that this coming week. For now, though, we are out of time. Till next week, remember, with Heavy Muscle Radio,
the truth hurts.